should not be relying on a human.
They are my friends.
I know one was good to you, B, but this is not our world.
No debemos depender de un humano.
Son mis amigos.
Ya sé que Charlie te trató bien, pero este no es nuestro mundo.
Hey guys, the Fire Brothers here. It's me, I'm back from vacation, and my brother couldn't be here today as always because he was caught simping for human arachnid. Honestly, not a bad look for her. But anyways, these are the jokes. And as you guys have seen at the beginning, I've been recently watching the Spanish version of Rise of the Beast. A little context before I go on and talk more about this video and some of the weird changes between the Spanish dub and the English dub. As I was coming back home from vacation, you know, I was on the plane and I started watching Rise of the Beast. And I saw that there was a multiple language option for Rise of the Beast. So I remember that someone on my Discord server once mentioned that in the Spanish dub, they actually straight up just mentioned Charlie. I actually rewind all the way to that scene all over again and watched it in Spanish. And lo and behold, Charlie gets mentioned. Now, something interesting about this is that the Spanish version has a bunch of changes that the English version doesn't have. Now, none of these are very major. They're often just lines of dialogue and stuff like that. I'm not saying that there's like a weird extended cut of Rise of the Beast out there, but some of these changes are actually pretty interesting, and I wanted to dedicate a video talking about some of them. Because A, I haven't seen anyone on YouTube, at least in the English side of things, talk about this. B, I know most of my audience will never even touch the Spanish version of Rise of the Beast, because the Spanish education in America is actually pretty poor. And C, the ride on the plane was actually pretty long, I had nothing better to do, and I don't want all that time being wasted. So at least I wanted to do something productive. So yeah, that's my excuse. Also, shout out to my editor for translating some of the Spanish segments I didn't understand. I may speak Spanish somewhat, may understand some of it, but I'm not an expert, okay? Hell, I almost failed Spanish in high school because I didn't do any of the work because I thought it was so boring. But yeah, as you guys saw, Charlie gets straight up name dropped in the Spanish version of Rise of the Beast. Now, this is actually very interesting because I also watched the film in German, French, and some other languages. They don't matter. And in none of those versions do they bring up Charlie's name. Charlie is Spanish exclusive, which I don't know what that says or how to feel about that. It's kind of weird because it's kind of weird that only the Spanish version and just legit name drops her. That's very weird. I'm not against it, but it's just so weird. Of course, the Spanish dub also has some changes, mostly in voice actors. The Spanish version sounds a bit more campier than Rise of the Beast itself, and of course without Peter Cullen and Ron Perlman, I think the Optimus Prime and Primal voices for the Spanish version are a bit weaker. However, I think there's some other voice actors that do a much better job than OG Rise of the Beast. I think Nightbird's voice sounds more distinguished in the Spanish version. I can actually tell when she's talking.
Los Autobots deben estar usando a sus mascotas para llegar al templo.
I think ours is a much better improvement than Lisa Koshy. I know she has her fans, but I wasn't a fan of her, and I think the Spanish version just flows more naturally.
¿Alguien aquí pidió apoyo? ¡Frena, frena! ¿Qué? ¡Que frene! ¡Sí! Pero Scourge estará espiando nuestros movimientos. Hará todo para evitar que tengamos la llave.
Mirage is another one that I would say I could go 50-50 on. I really warmed up to, what's his name? Pete Davidson. And I do feel like the Mirage in the Spanish dub has way cornier lines. I would like to see a cut where we had the Spanish voice narrating the English lines. I think that will sound a little better. And then we have Wheeljack. Now, see, this is one that you guys probably already knew about, but a lot of Wheeljack's dialogue is a bit altered in the Spanish version. Mostly because, according to my editor, he actually talks in Peruvian slang. He says certain words that, you know, well, yeah, they're in Spanish. It's not like every single Hispanic uses it, okay? It's like Americans using certain words and British people using certain words. You know, they both speak the same language, but the dialects are different. And honestly, after hearing Pablo in the Spanish version, I have to say, I actually like it more like this. If he talked Spanish the whole movie and didn't just talk in English with the Spanish accent, I think I would like him a little better. Granted, he still committed the unholy crime of being Wheeljack when he should rightfully be Fix-It, but honestly, the Spanish dub made me warm up to him, especially because he has a bit more uniqueness to his personality with the dialect. While in OG Rise of the Beast, it felt more like a crutch, something that was kind of just there. In here, I don't know, it feels more natural. It's hard to explain. Besides that, there are also changes in the dialogue. For example, that whole scene where Noah and Pablo talked and he's like, you know, I didn't want to be racist and stuff. The whole racist segment gets actually cut out and it's actually replaced by Wheeljack saying something differently. I'll subtitle it for you. And it's these weird changes in dialogue that's omitting certain words, omitting certain things, and adding some stuff like Charlie or like Wheeljack's dialect that makes me oddly fascinated with the Spanish version of Rise of the Beast. For example, another change in dialogue that happens way too often in this movie is that when Optimus Prime and the Autobots talk about the Terracons, they actually name drop the term Terracons more than once. When they talked about Scourge, instead of Optimus saying something like,
I'm going to take back Scourge's key and then take off his head.
Voy a recuperar la llave que tiene ese Terrorcon y luego lo decapitaré.
which is a bit of a strange thing, but my editor says that it's probably because the word scourge is a bit weird to say in Spanish. You know, it's an English word for once. In the Spanish dialect, it will sound a bit off, so maybe that's one of the reasons they changed it. And honestly, I kind of like this change, because it makes the Terracons feel like, you know, them as a unit are the real danger. It's not like, oh, it's just Scourge, you know. Nightbird and Boucher, those guys are chumps. Scourge, now he's the real trouble. And it's not like they just delete Scourge's name from the movie entirely. They still bring him out quite often, but they use the term Terracon way more often. I think in the movie, the name Terracon was used only once, and that was at the beginning when Airazor established them. Another change in dialogue, well, I'm not sure if this will count as a change in dialogue, just something that's made a bit more clear. In the Spanish version, when Airazor appears and tells Optimus that she's the last one left, the Spanish version is way more clear about what happened to the other Maximals. By the way, I made a video on about how the other Maximals, who were they, and how they can come back for the sequel. But the Spanish version just says up, nah mate, that's cringe. They're straight up dead. Straight up says, they're dead. I'm all that's left. Well, in the English version, because of the way she said it, it sounded a bit ambiguous as to how they could be there. In there, she just says, yep, they're not alive anymore. I'm all that's left. Which, man, kinda destroys that theory. But then again, this is the Spanish version, so its canonicity is up in the air. But it's just something that, you know, it's these weird things that just makes me so oddly fascinated with the movie in other languages. Just how much gets changed and added and taken away. And before you ask, Rhinox doesn't talk and Cheeto sounds about the same. Honestly, I have no preference between the two voice actors. And speaking of clarifications, remember how Airazor mentioned that the Terracons were empowered by a dark power from Unicron, and it's kind of implied to be Dark Energon even though it's not mentioned directly. When Airazor gets possessed by Scourge, she just straight up says that she's infused with the same energy Scourge has. So for those of you guys who still had doubts about what that thing was, yeah, it looks like it really was Dark Energon. It corrupted the mind. It was never confirmed, it was just a theory that we had to explain that whole gist, because the movie never explained it. So it just straight up says that Scourge's energy flows through her. So yeah, Dark Energon, which, you know, kind of links Scourge to Unicron, I guess was used in a similar way to link Airazor to Scourge, which it kind of flows nicer together. You know, it makes that cool concept easier to understand when watching the movie instead of just having to, you know, let your mind go through gym gymnastics trying to figure out how did this happen. Something else I wanted to mention is that the whole Maximize moment that Ron Perlman has in Rise of the Beast, it's a bit butcher in the Spanish version. Like, it doesn't have the same energy. Like,
Rhinox! Cheeto! Maximizar!
Rhinox! Cheetor! Maximize!
it doesn't have the ferocity that Ron Perlman had in the movie, and that's kind of upsetting. Not all the Spanish voices are an improvement in my opinion. We still hear the English voices, like when Optimus grunting special in the final battle, which, you know, makes sense. You don't need to dub everything, but I thought it was something interesting. Besides that, there's no other like very clear changes in dialogue besides the ending with G.I. Joe, where Noah just straight up just reads the name G.I. Joe. And yeah, that's it for the Spanish version. There are probably more changes out there, you know, probably more surrounding the human scenes, you know, when the Autobots are not around. But honestly, we don't care about the humans in the first place, so I just wanted to do a video going over the robot scenes, you know, when they are on screen, when they are talking, because they're the stars of the show. But overall, the Spanish version is very interesting. I kind of wish some of this stuff was in the actual English version, and I kind of wish, you know, the name drop of Charlie, some of the dialogue has stayed the same, and oh my god, Wheeljack is so much better in this version, but he should still not be Wheeljack, and I will forever hold a grudge to Steven Capu Jr. over that one. Steven, if you're watching this, I love you! Please make a Peter Cullen cameo for the next movie. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. If you speak another language and you watch the movie in any other language, let let me know what other changes are out there. Because again, this is something that happens not just for Rhapsody Beast but for all the other movies. I think the famous example of this would be The Last Night, where the international version was very different from the English version. You know, Nitro Suits had different lines of dialogue in different places that were added or taken away. That's not even going over the previous Michael Bay Transformers movies. They also had a bunch of changes. So if you speak another language or know anything about that, let me know other changes that are in Rhapsody Beast or some of the other movies. I might do videos covering those because I feel like that's a very interesting subject, doesn't get talked around much. See guys, here at the Fire Brothers channel, we like covering new ground that hasn't been broken down before. At least for English speakers. I'm sure all Hispanic viewers already knew this. But yeah, that's it for this vid. What do you guys think of the Spanish version? Do you guys like some of the changes they did? Do you think that some of them were not as good? Besides the changes in voice actors, which yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think the English cast is superior. I think the Spanish cast has some like really standouts there that also did a much better job than the English cast. RC Nightbird. But hey, that's just my opinion. As always guys, if you enjoy, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Do all that annoying YouTuber stuff that the algorithm likes so much. And I will see you guys in the next video. Stay safe guys. Anyways guys, before we go, shout out to our super incredible patrons: Predaking Hunter Plays, Scrub Lordo, Omega Trion 2006, Stage Productions, Xavier the God, Ender Skiers, Up Nation Reviews, James Newbold, DJ Universe, Tristan Curry, Stellar, Allspark Studio, Super Sailor Formers Hedgehog, Cuber 9 Gaming, Rich Cracker 64 Studios Productions, Crazy T-Rex, King Sparta, Legend of Soup, Idiotobot Side of J, Crawley 666, Itsuki, and TF Cypher. And shout out to our incredible big bold Patreons, Jordan the Great and X-North23, who donated a amount of money. I still won't tell how much it was. But anyways, if you join my Patreon, you get a few rewards. You can watch some of my videos early, you can request a collab with me, some of my videos or your videos depending on your choosing. You can request some videos from me, get early looks at some videos that I'm doing and even some that I haven't published quite yet. The list goes on. But keep in mind that it's entirely optional because freedom's the right of all sentient beings. Thank you to my patrons for donating, it's much appreciated. Be sure to go and check out their channels. They could use all the help they can get. Some of them do Transformers content like I do, and some of them do whatever other funny thing they can come up with. We have quite a diverse selection here. But yeah, as always guys, thank you so much for your support, it's much appreciated. And I'll see you all in the next video. Stay safe guys.